So before we get going, I thought I'd ask you a quick poll question to sort of share, to sort of find out how personalisation is in your organisation. So if we could put the poll question up, please. So really, how much personalisation does your current wellbeing strategy allow for? Is there lots and lots of opportunity for personalisation, limited but it's increasing, or not very much at all? So let's have a look, how we're doing. So kind of limited, great to see that there are relatively few of you who don't have much in there at all. Okay, so there's kind of a good mixture here.
So I wanted to quickly say two things. First of all, thanks for coming to see us today. Time's precious, the most precious thing we've all got, so thanks, really appreciate you all coming to see us. Been coming to REBA events for a long time, so and I always come away with some really good golden nuggets. So mental health first aiders, for example, that I put in was because of REBA and hearing about them at REBA many moons ago, about 6-7 years ago. And a provider I met for the first time here who we now have as well. So hope you all learn a lot from coming here today. And the second thing I wanted to say first, before we get started, was how nice it is to be in a room with people that understand what I do for a living. Do you all have that? When you meet new people, they say, what do you do? And you're like, do I tell them, I deal with menopause, neurodiversity, bereavements? Oh, I just work in HR. It's easier, isn't it, than trying to explain what we do. So it's really nice to be in a room where people understand. So I work for Marsh McLennan, which consists of 4 businesses. So you might have heard of Marsh, Mercer, Oliver Wyman or Guy Carpenter. There are 4 businesses. We've got 85,000 globally and I don't know how many offices. I should have looked that up, but hundreds of offices. And I look after the EMEA region, so that's about 50,000 staff. And I have a team of 12 trying to do that, as we're all restricted on resources, aren't we? So been with the company about 10 years through various acquisitions along the way. So that's me. And then the question was around hyper-personalisation within our business. So we wanted this to kind of be a bit more, informal, so we'll sort of talk through different things. And as Dawn said, please send in your questions. So for us, we've got a culture of bringing your whole self to work, being relaxed, within the business, trying to be as diverse as we can. We're definitely on a journey with that. Our average employee is a white male in their 40s. So we are taking strides to try and make our culture more diverse. So around personalisation, it's how, from the UK, we've got 13,000 staff. How can we make their employee journey feel personal whilst there's 13,000 of them? So for us, we can talk through various different things that we do and ideas, but it's trying to make sure that they feel, whatever that situation it is, whether it's partners going through an illness, whether it's gender transition, whatever it is, that our benefits match that, and they can think, oh, actually I am supported through my work. It's not just your life cover, your health care, and the very vanilla type benefits that we were kind of used to 10-15 years ago. Now it's so broad that it's trying to make sure you're thinking of all those different scenarios and can they see themselves and the support available in what we offer.
Thank you, Caroline. Priya, over to you.
Thanks, Dawn. It's working? Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll echo Caroline's thanks for everyone for joining this session. So I'm coming from Bain Capital, which is the private equity company, and in stark contrast, we're a much smaller company. We're 1,600 people globally. We're about 250 people in EMEA, but across 12 locations. So our benefits challenges that we have are somewhat different, trying to get the providers to be able to even give us benefits. And really starting on that journey of what more can we bring to the table, because Bain Capital has a very, very paternalistic view in that they want to offer everything to everyone. And so trying to then find the personalization for people to feel like this is for them within a framework to say, well, we don't want to make people pick and choose. We're giving everything to everyone. And that's kind of the approach that we're taking and looking at the benefits that we can offer. My personal background is a combination of international mobility and benefits. So I've sort of seen what we've done globally in various other organizations. I've only been with Bain Capital about 15 months. But having spent sort of 10 years contracting, have really seen how different organizations of various sizes have managed this, and to see what we can apply, especially in this changing environment where, what do we define it as family? How do we encourage people to join our organization, especially when private equity has this reputation of being white male? We want to encourage women to come into the organization. We want to encourage diversity in the organization, but we very much have a view that we bring people in at associate level and they work their way up to partner. Very rarely do we hire in between. So how do we appeal to people at that point, but still support them through their whole career with us? So that's kind of our position.
Thank you, Priya. And Katie, I think finally we were going to ask you about looking sort of across the market. How is the shift towards greater personalisation creating better support for employees at all their life stages?
Sure. Again, thank you everyone for coming. Agree with Caroline entirely that time is very precious, and so it's great to see you all here coming to listen to us talk. Just by brief introduction, I founded a company called Apiary Life. So I look at this from the other side, and my own background was as a divorce lawyer, family lawyer, so helping people through obviously divorces, co-parenting challenges and things like that. And what I saw when working with individuals who were working professionals was that they just didn't have the support that they needed in their workplace in order to continue to thrive at work while they navigated personal life changes that were very burdensome on their time. I was a lawyer sending them very long to-do lists of all the things they needed to do. And like all of you in this room, they didn't have any time to do any of those things. So they were either emailing me at 2:00 in the morning or taking leaves of absence, or worse, they were retiring early or quitting their jobs. And I was pretty shocked as the lawyer to find that there wasn't a really robust, personalized support structure in place that was provided by their employer. So I look at this from kind of the side of things needing to be personalized for the employee user, because when I was a lawyer, I realized divorce law wasn't going to be as easy as I thought it was, because not any single divorce is the same. Everyone's personal lives and their situations are always very different, and if you don't look at it through that lens, this kind of one-size-fits-all approach doesn't really provide them with much value. In terms of the market, I'm sure there's one day when we'll stop talking about COVID, but I think COVID really did break down a lot of the barriers that we had with talking about more difficult things that were happening at home, and also changed, and whether this is a new generation coming through or whether, again, it was related to that, I think changed the expectation of employees. I'm based in America, but we're a global company, but especially in America, I think that there is a lack of support that you get from the government and the states, and I feel like that's kind of across the board, and so people really look to their employer to provide them that. They need you to be that place where they can get care and they trust you, I think, more than most other things in their lives. So we've just seen, I think, a willingness. When I started Apiary in 2017, and when I started talking about divorce and death and all of these things, people looked at me like I had 27 heads. But I think now everyone really is willing to not only talk about it, but meet those needs and look at it in a very personalised basis. And the new kind of products coming in the market and the way that we've developed technology can allow for a much more personalised, quick, expedited level of care that is really looking at that individual user. So that would be my 2 cents.
Fab. Thank you, Katie. Well, I can see we've got lots of brilliant questions coming in. I think there was one about employee experience, actually, which is an area we were looking to cover. So how is hyper-personalisation supporting and enhancing the employee experience? Perhaps, Caroline, can come to you for that one first, please.
I think particularly around the life stages, you know, the events that you mentioned, Katie, there's such a big impact on that individual's home life, and they can't just switch off, can they, when they come into work? So it's about supporting them when they're going through whatever event it is, and just, you know, you're doing it because it's the right thing, and you're trying to help that employee and then free up their time or help them go, you know, through that situation, so then they can focus back on their job. But also the engagement that I've seen naturally back from you know, the business was there when they were going through that critical period, and just the engagement you naturally get back from that, or, you know, they'll mention it to their colleagues, etc. So not everyone's going to need, you know, some of the services that you might have, but for those that do use them when it is that critical part or period in their lives, I think the engagement is really strong that you naturally get back around that.
Okay. So I know a couple of people mentioned about having limited budget, limited resources. So how can you introduce this sort of a great level of personalisation if you have got sort of limited capacity? That's Priya, would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, and especially in the current environment, budgets are being looked at even more so than maybe the last couple of years. I think through COVID, I think employers were willing to put a bit more towards benefits, making sure everyone was supported. I think it's about looking at what you're getting. We cannot do everything. As much as we may want to. And I think one of the challenges I think a lot of us do face is someone very senior will see something in a newspaper or in the media and say, okay, let's look at this. And I think part of our role is really starting to look at what is the strategy, what is the population, and what is our priority. And we do, unfortunately, need to look at it from that perspective, and not just sort of follow the way of the media. Because all of our organizations are different, our demographics are different. So what is it that we need as organizations? And I think that's the only way that we can really consider it.
So does that involve looking at data to sort of help to inform those decisions?
Absolutely. I don't think there's anyone in this room who wouldn't say that data is becoming, it's always been, but becoming more prevalent in how we present information, you know, who the demographics are, and also what are we getting for where we're spending the money? You know, are we hitting the right spots? And it's not just about saying, is it going to service the most people, but is it actually going to service potentially the quiet minority, or the stages of life that, you know, we talk about, you know, death, for example. If there's a death in the family, that's not something we're going to say that every single member of the organization is, we're going to support them through it in the next 12 months. But for the people that it will impact, it's quite critical and it will have such a huge impact. So I think it's also balancing that while using that data for the demographics.
Sorry, can I add something? I would say that you, as the employer, you have a lot of power to push your vendors, I would say. So, like, I think the days of per employee per month pricing is pretty unpopular, certainly in the States. So we certainly offer utilization-based pricing. I think push for that. So therefore, you as a business know when you're spending money, you're spending it on the people that are using it, rather than guessing and being told that they estimate this much utilization, and you've seen it all before. And then, pushing for feedback from the people that are using it, making sure that you're getting the value out of that, but also in the buying process, pushing for the ROI. Like, there should be a clear ROI for you, so that it might cost the business money, but it should save the business money, more money than it costs. And if the vendors can't show you that, I think that's a problem, especially in this market. We're spending a good amount of time on making sure that we can show you very clearly what that ROI is to the business, and that there's actually therefore not a cost. And I think that really helps when you're taking things that you might feel passionate about up to the CFO or whoever it is that needs to sign off on it. If you can kind of really well articulate that argument, and you should ask your vendors to help you articulate it, because you probably don't have enough time to build that business case for them.
Thank you. So I think there's some brilliant questions coming through. I was scrolling through them. So Caroline, I mean, I think one of the top ones here is about how do you personalise if a company has multiple sites? And it seems quite a big issue in your organisation, which is very large. I mean,
yeah, I think so. We've got a flexible benefits platform which helps, but then in the background, it's about the providers you use as well, and trying to make sure wherever possible that they can try and personalise the journey as well. So, for example, one of our benefits is around menopause, fertility, and new parent support. But it's also trying to make sure which quite often the female would tend to go towards that benefit, but it's making sure our colleagues, our male colleagues, or females with female partners know that it's for your partners as well. So it's trying to, and it kind of ties in with the cost point as well. A lot of the work we've done the last few years is around educating and explaining the depth of what our benefits offer. And a lot of colleagues have said, that our benefits package has really moved forward, and actually we haven't really added very much. All we've done is communicated better and think of the different scenarios and how someone might then relate to it. So a lot of our comms, I'll really push the team on giving examples rather than, it does this type of service. Actually, I'm not going to relate to that. What are the particular scenarios? Give quite a few different examples, and then we've seen that the buy-in is much higher and the usage is better. Yeah.
Thank you. So I think another great question is about the difference between flexible benefits you choose, the difference between flexible benefits options to choose benefits and hyper-personalisation. So where is that sort of line? Is there a sort of a difference between the two, or is it kind of more of a sort of a connected thing?
Yeah, I'm conscious of talking too much, but they are interlinked in respect. Obviously, the flexible benefits, then you can tailor them to your lifestyle. But for us, the personalisation is bigger. It's more than just your flexible benefits. It's about all the support in the background as well. So, for example, at the moment we're working on the pre-retirement journey, whereas traditionally it would be, go and get your retirement quote, whereas now it's the financial education piece. It's seminars on your work-life balance and adjusting to not needing to be in a certain place at a certain time every day. It's about the support on their finances, and there's like £500 you can put. There's like tax allowances around taking money from your pension pot towards financial advice, and also the company can do £500 as well with tax advantages. So it's we're looking at that as well to give staff that option. So it's kind of thinking of the whole picture of the pre-retirement. It's not just your pension anymore. It's trying to support employees on that whole journey. So yes, there's the flexible benefits and the annual cycle, and then go in every month and change different things. But it's much bigger than that now, and it's all these other things that we all do as well in the background, rather than just the core and voluntary benefits of old.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know, Priya, when we spoke before, we talked a lot about sort of DEI and how family is no longer just the parents and children. It's much, much broader than that. So how does sort of hyper-personalisation play into that, and how that's shifting?
So I think when we've talked about family in the past, and certainly from a benefit focus, it's always been about sort of you, your partner, 2.4 children kind of scenario, and that's what a lot of the providers cater to. I think one of the things that became much more evident in COVID was also the consideration of that wider family network. And I'm a prime example of that. I'm of an Asian background, so we talk about the big families and the extended families and how they all connect. I'm single by choice. So therefore, having benefits that are for my partner and my children don't mean anything to me as an individual. So I'm looking, and I think a lot of people are looking to your companies to say, well, what are you doing for me when that's not part of my setup? My family are my parents, or it might be my sister and her family, as it were. The government started to recognize that through COVID when they brought in the support bubbles, because they realized that the single adult families, there was a separate challenge there. And I think one of the things that we're looking for is we're looking now for the marketplace to also catch up to that, because I would love to have dental insurance that I could get for my parents. There's no provider who would do that, as an example. So really looking now to see how the providers will catch up to that, because I think as employers, we're willing to do it.
Thank you. I suppose, Katie, do you feel that the market is shifting to be more inclusive, to offer those sort of broader sort of benefits?
I think definitely. I think there's been a lot of kickback from people saying, well, that's great, but I'm not a parent. You've got 27 benefits for every parent in this organisation, but you've got none for me. So I think there is a lot of, well, where's the things that can help me? I think one of the themes that we're seeing a lot is aging parents, right? We are the sandwich generation. You may or may not have kids at home, but you've probably got parents who are aging and are becoming a responsibility for you from a caregiving perspective. And that carries with it a ton of to-dos and a ton of navigation, especially if it's in home care or out home care. How do we afford it? Where do we start? How do we start talking about end-of-life planning and all of these things? Again, I would say make sure that the suppliers that say that they're helping those things are looking at it through the lens of personalisation, so that every user, hopefully through a digital tool, at the very beginning, they're getting a personalised experience based on the information that they feel happy to share with whatever app it is. But also that when they are engaging with, whether it's something like us, it's a caregiving solution, are they getting a personalised experience at the end point? Is there one person who's talking to them and learning about their life and what their needs are and catering to that? Or are they getting some one-size-fits-all, here's a load of information that may or may not apply to their set of circumstances? And I think that's really important. And I think that's what's useful to employers, because they want the outcome to be helpful as opposed to be paying for something that doesn't really impact them that much.
Okay. So on the sort of the top question at the moment is whether you've got any sort of examples of how you've achieved hyper-personalisation in your organisations and how you practically manage these differences within that. Is there anything that you think would be a good example? Priya, do you want to go?
Yeah, I can. So sort of earlier, tail end of last year, we launched a benefit similar to what Caroline's talked about around fertility and sort of reproductive health, although that's really not a sexy name for it. But it is really covering employees and their partners right from sort of egg freezing through to if they want IVF, support around surrogacy, adoption, and then right through to sort of prostate health, perimenopause, menopause. So really going through the whole cycle. It's one provider, we've marketed it as almost two benefits in order to make sure that people see everything that it has available to it. So we've put in sort of what we've called a lifetime allowance. So people can use it, dip in and out of it as and when they need, and through their lifetime of their career with us, everyone's got this one allowance that they can utilize. So as I said, our company is very paternalistic. We like to pay for stuff for everyone. It's just the approach we have. And you can do when you're a smaller company. And that sort of, for the individuals, that is very personalized. It's targeting them for whenever they need it, for whatever they need. And I think that has been very successful and really appreciated, because we've had people who've come in around sort of perimenopause. We've had people come in and say, actually, this is great. I want to do the egg freezing because, we have quite an aggressive career path. So, I want to do that. And we've opened it up for the employees and their partners to use. So there are ways to do these things.
Thank you. I'm just trying to think. A lot of what we've talked about is we did discuss earlier about the technology and whether or not there is the technology available to enable hyper-personalisation. So I think we sort of came to the conclusion there was two sort of sides to this. So Katie, did you want to start off by sort of explaining sort of from your perspective how that's sort of evolving?
I guess from my perspective, technology means the technology we're continuously developing, and like how can we make that better? And really a lot of that is about making sure that it provides a very personalized user experience to the user. And to your point, we want to be one place where a user can come for any and everything that's happening in their life, whether they're at the beginning of that journey, maybe they are starting a family or getting married, or maybe they're just buying their first home, through to those people that might be caring for ill loved ones at home, dealing with deaths in the family, things like that. But it's important when the user comes on, they don't feel like they don't fit anywhere, and that there's that breadth of support, and then that the technology allows for them to be being provided automatically and easily with the information that's relevant to them based on what they're doing. So I think for us it's more about like how can we continue to enhance our technology platform so that people can have a very personalized digital experience, which feels personal to them, I guess, not to use the same word. And then otherwise I think we think about it from your perspective about communications. Like, are you using digital tools or techniques that are making sure that people know about like what you have and that it is personalized to them as well? Like, are you able to think about certain pockets of your population, or whether it's via maybe certain groups that they're in, and making sure you tell them about what they want to hear about as opposed to everything, because it's really overwhelming, especially if you're in somewhere like Marsh McLennan. There's like a lot of benefits. Like, they might not be able to find what they need because there's just so much, and that's because you're a great employer. But make sure that you're using the digital tools to make sure that the information is being fed to the people that need it, and so therefore they get knowledge of the things that they can use and help.
One thing we've actually started to do recently is go back to face-to-face and on-site, because we kind of obviously lost that with COVID, so we've actually gone back, and it is proving to be really popular, and people are appreciating it. So we're kind of, we're going out there and we're visiting the smaller offices and we're doing the benefits drop-ins. But the drop-ins, it's not just on a certain subject. It's, just come and talk to us and we'll talk about anything you want to. And if we don't know the answer, then we'll go away, find it and come back to you. And people are kind of appreciating that personal touch, which, it's not costing anything other than our team's time. I think it's good experience as well for my team to get out there, and then we'll get feedback as well, rather than us just sitting in our HR function. If when we're out there and talking to colleagues, we'll hear things that we maybe weren't aware of. And a lot of the changes we've done over the last couple of years as well have been through feedback through our employee resource groups. So imagine quite a lot of you have already got your different DEI groups. So we've sort of got like gender balance ones, diversity and inclusion ones, mental health ones, and a lot of the changes we've made, including to the healthcare, have been through feedback from these groups. And when we upgraded our healthcare around neurodiversity, I sent the chair of that group the changes to the policy to say, is this going to, because I haven't got any experience of neurodiversity. I'm quite ignorant on that topic, I admit it. So I went to, those that understand it much better than me to check, right, if we do this, I believe this is right. And then they checked the wording for me. They actually came back with some changes, and then we've put that in place in our healthcare scheme. And I think as well on the budget point, what we've tried to do is we have changed some things, but it's about communicating that we're on a journey, so we can't afford to do everything for everybody all at once. So we've kind of, we've introduced some, for example, fertility support on our healthcare, but it's not going to cover your IVF program. But what we have done is we've put in, I guess almost like a bronze level, so you can get started on it. We recognise it's an area, we recognise it's important. I'm afraid, there's so many great things that we need to be doing to help different situations, but so we've done this for now. Isn't it great news? But yes, we're aware that we need to still do more, and we will work to do that.
Okay, fab. So one of the top questions is about what benefits can be offered to the younger generation who are new to corporate life. So I think one of the questions I also wanted to pose is around sort of attracting and retaining talent, and whether that is obviously a key challenge at the moment, and how personalisation can help to sort of play into that and bring things to life for candidates and existing employees at the same time. Priya, would you like to answer that one?
So I think what I found interesting, not so much at Bain Capital, because we hire once people have X number of years of experience, typically. But if I think about sort of a prior life, we certainly had our recruitment team talking about the graduate recruitment program, for example. And actually there was a shift in what graduates were talking about and asking about at the careers fairs. And they weren't talking as much about your pay package and your progression and how quickly can you get promoted. What they were asking about were things like actually around ESG and community giving. So I think there's definitely a shift, and if you want to bring in the younger talent, you have to adjust to what their requirements are. So a big part of what we've been looking at is around sort of the community piece. What do we give back? We have a children's fund that we donate to. We volunteer as an organisation. So it's about highlighting those aspects to make sure that they're in tune with the new hires that are coming in. As I said, we have a very aggressive career path. And so one of the things that we were being constantly asked about was around delaying starting families. So, for us, bringing in something that allowed for the egg freezing was a big part of looking at who we're trying to recruit, what the barriers are for them, and how do we address that. So really looking at that customized for your organisation, I think, is key.
Thank you, Priya. Did anyone else have anything else to add to that one? We'll go on to the next one. So, also hybrid workers is quite a big topic at the moment. So, how are you seeing being able to personalise to them as well? Is anyone who'd like to take that one?
I'm happy to take it. I would think of it more of the hybrid, flexible, whatever we want to call it, but you see less of them, right? So you know less about what people are struggling with than you did before, in a weird way. Even though we've kind of broken down those barriers and people maybe talk about it more, they can also hide a lot more at home. You don't know as much that people might be struggling with things, and there might be substance abuse problems. They might have a lot more on, and they're doing a really good job at pretending they're fine, but you don't know. And I think that actually losing that ability to kind of wrap your arms around your employees physically is important to bear in mind. And just, are you, if you're not in regular touch and you think that you're are you thinking about that, and are you making sure that they do again have access to the things that they need? Because I think a lot of the time we're good at pretending when we're in the office that we're fine, but there's a lot of time now that we're able to hide behind our Zoom screens and hide what's really going on at home, and I think it's important to just keep thinking about that.
We've also kind of learned, because we were sending out some comms, and then we had feedback that though we've got in one of our business 25% are permanent home workers, and we were doing quite a lot in the offices, and then they were sort of, hang on, what about me? So now we're very conscious of that, and when we send out comms, we for some particular things we will do a bespoke version just for those that are working from home, and say, look, we appreciate your home worker, just to let you know this is going on at the office near you, or this is being recorded and there'll be a link, etc. Appreciate you're not there in person. So I think it's trying to cater for, it's difficult, isn't it, right? You're trying to cater for those that can only watch things on Zoom, those that are in the office all the time, and then those that do hybrid. So for example, a lot of the things we were doing during the COVID period were on video, etc., and helping you with your fitness while you're at home. And then we'd got all of our IT people and facilities people saying, hang on a minute, I'm in the office still 5 days a week, nothing's changed for me. So it's just always being mindful and trying to think of those different situations whenever you're sending anything out as well.
So looking at the second question, what are the metrics and KPIs you use to know your hyper-personalisation is having an impact? So how are you sort of measuring success of what you're doing? Priya, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I think for us, and the most obvious one is to look at the usage. But I think for us, it's also about the chatter in the office. We have a hybrid where we have mandatory days in the office. So we're 3 days in the office, 2 days at home. But Mondays and Tuesdays in EMEA, we ask everyone to come in so that you've still got that buzz of the office happening. The associates have got people to talk to, and not everything's happening over Zoom. So we do still, therefore, have that access to that chatter, the conversations, the general feedback, where people will stop me as I'm getting a coffee to say, oh, by the way, I used this, it was great, or more likely, I used this isn't working. I also do think sometimes the KPIs are a bit difficult because sometimes silence is golden. I think we all know our employees will come to us very quickly when there's a problem. Getting the information out of them that they're happy is just much harder. So sometimes we do accept that there is a degree of silence is golden. We will just continuously ask them, what else can we do? Can't necessarily deliver immediately, but what else can we do?
Yeah, I think certainly the key topics at the moment, menopause for us, we've done quite a lot on that in the last 6 months, and the feedback has been incredible. So I think some of those, particular situations that people are going through, we've got like a Teams chat now for anybody in the UK to join, males and females, and there's chat on that every single day about different menopause things. So I think it's finding those key things. People don't come up to in the office to us and say, oh, thanks for changing your life cover provider. That new provider's, well known, and I've got a lot of trust in that insurance policy now. They'll come up and say, thanks so much for the menopause support. It's really great. I wish we'd have had that before. I feel great for the younger generation coming in now with all this support that you've got. I think those certain situations now, people are also more confident and comfortable coming to you with how they feel. And definitely the whole COVID period and seeing people's living rooms and cats misbehaving on Zoom, etc., has made people more open to sharing things.
That kind of leads quite nicely to the third question about how you encourage people to share their personal information that enables you to really personalise things for them. Is there sort of any tips or things that you think will really encourage people to I suppose, to divulge quite personal information in some circumstances?
For me, it's the trust element and knowing that, they can, and this comes from our leaders down as well, that they are, continuing encouraging people to open up, to be honest about, whatever it is in their situation. So for me, it's that trust, and if they if they do open up to you, that you're going to take that information and do the right thing with it, and support them through whatever it is. So for me, it's more the trust, but it's got to be, through the various levels at the company.
Yeah. I think if I add to that, I think, to your point, it comes from all of us being open about it. So if HR are open about what's happening with us personally, if leadership are open about what's happening with them personally, if they're willing to share those stories, or even not even as what was traditionally done, where you'd have the leaders, put out a video or stand up and say, hey, I've been through this, but for them to even just do it colloquially. Oh, I'm taking time off because this and this is happening, so I'm out of the office. And to be more open about that really sets the tone of the culture for the organization to say, it's okay. And I think that's a key piece to it.
Yeah. I really agree. We spend a lot of time when we launch with new employer clients with that. Like, if we can get buy-in from leadership, somebody who's storytelling, right? Like, maybe they lost a parent this year or something, and they can talk about the impact that it had on them, and then introduce a new provider because they know how hard it is, and give people permission. I think that's really important. I would slightly also say, though, that I think you need to give employees somewhere to go where they can get the help without having to necessarily interact with their managers or HR or whoever it is, because actually they don't want to bring those things up. They don't want to say, I'm going through a divorce and I actually can't get out of bed in the morning, and my productivity is impacted by 75%, because that's not great. But they need to know that if they have those things going on, that you've got the resources and that you want to be there and you want to support them, and then therefore they feel like they've got permission to access them and use them. I think that's really important.
Fab. Well, we have whizzed through that time. It's gone really, really fast. I'm sure we could sit here for another 45 minutes and go through some more questions. So I'll just thank you, ladies, very much for your insights and tips and so on. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
I'm sure you'll be happy to hang around for a couple of minutes afterwards if anyone else wanted to come and ask any questions. There's now please rate us on Slido. But we're going to have a quick, short 10-minute changeover now. So next up in this room, we've got a session on men's health, followed by creating how to create a thriving workforce in times of change. But thank you very much, everybody.